My name is Andrew Kroglund. I'll guide us through this afternoon's deliberations, and welcome to this lovely place at Ås. Ås, a lovely place to be, both because of the academic credentials of the place, the beautiful surroundings, and also the fact that Ås is a developing place, a lot of things going on. And man is a product of nature, but at the same time we are urban dwellers. And you know, 2,500 years ago, the philosopher Socrates said, "Trees and earth can teach me nothing, but persons, humans living in a city can teach me a lot." So already 2,500 years ago, people were preoccupied with the urban issues of their time. And today, in a world which is rapidly growing, we are going from approximately 8 billion people to almost 11 billion people in maybe 30, 40, 50 years' time. Where are these people going to dwell? In cities. Cities are growing. Cities have to be sustainably managed in order for us to reach all the development goals which the UN and we all have said that we are going to reach within a short time. So the University of Life Sciences has invited us all to ponder upon the issue of urban development and sustainability. And we have a handful of very interesting speakers who have delved into certain aspects of sustainability and urban planning. The first person to give us his thought in order to fight for nature and nature's right to be counted. Very interesting indeed. Probably the two most important books ever written, or three books, is Talmud, the Quran, and the Bible. But apart from these three books, be they fiction or non-fiction, depends on your worldview, I suppose. Charles Darwin's book of 1859 on the evolution of man and of society and life, is probably the most important book. But what people usually don't know is that Charles Darwin was a great, had a great interest in worms, earthworms. He postulated that society, civilization is built upon the work of the worm, because if you hadn't had that earth transformer, you would never have had agriculture, and you couldn't have built societies and towns and cities living upon the growth of the soil. So, of course, in a sustainable green future, worms of different shapes and colors have an important role to play also in the urban situation. And the next talk is going to be on the potential of vermicomposting in a sustainable urban development. And Alene Tefsa-Michael, who is a CEO at the company called Edelmark, is going to give us some insight into this probably unknown world to most of us.
Thank you very much for the very nice introduction. I'm Alene Tefsa-Michael, actually in Norwegian, Alene. Jeg ikke alene, egentlig. Jeg to barn og familie. I'm the CEO for Edelmark AS. So to say a little bit about Edelmark, Edelmark was established as an Aksjeselskap since 2020. Actually, it has operated as enkelmannsforetak since 2013. And the company has been operating completely 100% on vermicomposting. I believe it's only Edelmark that's working on vermicomposting on full time. So we are actually partners for sustainable and circular solutions. And we have a team that has an experience more than 15 years in composting, vermicomposting, and organic waste management. Actually, I have worked in Lindum for about 10 years as vermicomposting researcher. And now I'm teaching in Videregående Skole. By the side, I'm working for Edelmark. So we are creating values from organic waste using earthworms. And actually, we are also delivering some consultancy, some training, and some other services related to vermicomposting. But what's actually vermicomposting? This is the center or the focus point of our presentation. Actually, some people are mixing vermiculture with vermicomposting. Vermiculture is actually growing worms for other purposes, like fishing. But when we talk about vermicomposting, it's the use of composting earthworms to make compost in simple terms. So vermicomposting is using composting worms. What are composting worms? There are more than 3,000 species of worms in the world, but only 6 or 7 types of worms are composting worms. And Edelmark is using Aicena fetida, which is the most popular composting worm in the world. So that's what we are using. And vermicomposting is actually a process which requires control of some important factors. The most important factors are temperature, moisture, and the air condition. Unless we take care of these 3 factors, we cannot be successful with vermicomposting. Temperature has to be between 15 and 30 degrees. The moisture content has to be about 60 to 80% in the organic waste. And the oxygen content, actually, that's not very, very important, but it has to be actually not anaerobic. And if anyone would like to do vermicomposting, there are 3 important things that we should have in hand. The first thing is we need to have the right type of earthworms. We need to have the composting earthworms. The other is we have to have the organic material. When we talk about the organic material, we have a bedding where we consider as a house for the worms to start operation. And the other organic material is, it could be the food waste or garden waste, whatever, an organic material that can be used to the worms as food, and the worms convert that to vermicompost. Otherwise, we have to have the right place to conduct that vermicomposting. When I say the right place, it can be outside, it can be inside. It doesn't matter. What is important is we have to keep the temperature in between 15 and 30 degrees centigrade, which means if it's outside, we have to have some mechanism to keep the temperature inside warm. Otherwise, that will not work. Can vermicomposting play a very important role in urban agriculture? Yes, the answer is really yes. As you know, from each and every household, we have a lot of organic wastes that are released, such as food waste, we have garden waste, like grass clip, we have also paper. All these are organic wastes that can be composted with the help of earthworms. It's possible that we can have this composting at home to produce vermicompost. So by doing so, we can improve use of resources. Organic waste is not anymore waste now, it's a resource. So we can improve the use of that resource in our house, and we can have a healthy production. We can use the product that we have from this vermicomposting is an organic compost that can be used for production of vegetables and other types of plants. Then the production that we are going to have will be a healthy organic food. And the other is increased soil organic matter. While we are using this vermicompost in our soil, we are increasing the organic matter in the soil, and we are reducing the use of chemical fertilizer in this process. And for sure, we can have less greenhouse gas emission in this process. So by doing this in our household, we can recirculate, or we can circulate the organic waste, and we can have our own food production. For example, in Norway, there is a release of about 300 kilogram organic waste per year from every individual. And if we take a family that has 4 individuals and make a vermicompost, an individual can make about 180 kilogram vermicompost from 300 kilogram organic waste. So the 4 members family can have 750 kilogram vermicompost per year. This is really more than enough for production of vegetable at home. It's, I will come up to my evidence how it can work, but that is really more than that. And in addition to the vermicompost that we have, there is what we call vermiwash. From the vermicomposting process, there is a liquid draining down to the box that we are going to use. So in that box, we can collect the liquid part and use it for plant production. Actually, that liquid part is not something stable, so we have to use it as soon as we have collected the liquid product. And by doing vermicomposting, also, it's possible to have more earthworms that can be used for chicken production or other animal production. So it's also important in that aspect, and it's sustainable and actually circular. By doing so, we can prove that it's sustainable and circular with zero waste release. Well, people have other methods of composting. There is a usual composting. There is also bokashi people are using. But why are we interested in vermicomposting? Vermicomposting actually is simple and easy to apply. And when it comes to the nutrients, they are much more available in the available form in vermicompost than other types of composts. And it has more favorable microorganisms and plant hormones, and it's we have proved that it can suppress disease and pests, and it can have also a better use in relation to pot growing. Otherwise, as I mentioned, in piggery, poultry, fish meal, human meal, as medicine, it's proved in different countries. As you can see in the right side, here are the pictures that showing how vermicompost can have an effect. In Edelmark, we have a project currently that's running on vermicomposting of different organic wastes. We are doing the vermicomposting on different types of organic wastes to produce different types of vermicompost. Different vermicomposts have different characteristics related to the physical, chemical, and biological characteristics. So by doing so, we can have a possibility of producing really a super compost that contains whatever we need in our products. So this project is done together with USN and INN. The other question is, can vermicomposting scale up? Yes, it can be. For example, in Edelmark, we are using the digestate from a biogas plant which is using food waste or other animal waste to make biogas. So we are using the digestate, which is dewatered, and we are producing vermicompost from this process. And we have proved that the vermicompost that we get from this process is really very wonderful. We can make vermicompost, and we have another product, what we call it Edel juice. We have a 4 years research result of a liquid organic fertilizer that we came up with from Edelmark, and that can be produced. Just to show you some pictures how vermicomposting is really effective in a household vegetable production. This is my own garden at home. The one you see at the right top corner, that's my garden. I was in Drammen, in Leylighet. We have used vermicompost and compost to grow vegetables using pots. But now I am living in Hokksund, where I have a better area for agricultural production or vegetable production. In all these activities, I'm using compost and vermicompost only. And really, it's amazing product. Amazing production of vegetables. At the beginning, the area was completely sandy, but after I started using all this vermicompost and compost, it became like that. And the one you see at the left bottom corner, it's a 4 years research that we did to came up with the product that we called Edel juice, which is a living liquid organic product. And to the right here, what you see is there is one project which is known as in Reklima. They are growing vegetables by using the earthworms directly in the pots or in the growing media. It's simply adding the organic matter in the growing media while worms are in. And I'm really very proud to say that originally, I was the one who came up with this idea, but we have developed afterwards with this project. Last but not least, we had also a project which was supported from Regional Forskningsfond with regard to the Edel juice to test its quality, its durability. So by the end, the result has confirmed that this product is really wonderful, and it was registered by Matelsine as by DBO as organic product that can be used for organic agricultural production. So this is a possibility of using vermicompost in another form, in a liquid form. So we had this research also. So I hope I have some minutes to show you how larger vermicomposting works. Done. Normally, when you have large vermicomposting or vermicomposting at household, you have to have the enough density of worms that can consume the organic waste you have. An earthworm can consume the same weight of food of its own weight per day, which means if you have 1 kilogram of worms, they weigh about, they can process about 1 kilogram of organic waste per day. So it's possible to manipulate in that way. And as I mentioned to you, this one is in Reklima that we came up with. We came up with using the worms directly in a growing media and adding the organic waste directly to the containers, so that the earthworms are processing the organic waste and releasing nutrients to the plants, which mimics the natural process of composting. Yes, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer.
Creepy stuff. But obviously, Edelmark is a brand to follow. Yes, Folkens, the presenters could come up to this stage again, and we'll have a couple of minutes together. Just grab a seat. Now, let me ask first, are there any, or is there any person in the audience who would like to delve forth with a question to any of the presenters? Then feel free. Just raise your arm, and we'll have time for that. If not, I'll just go into the business matter, and I'll start with you, Erling. We've heard interesting input into urban planning, sustainability, and all that. I mean, as a professor, having an overview of literature, research projects, and so on and so forth. Are you an optimist? Are we moving in the right direction when you listen to all these presenters here?
No, I'm not very optimistic because I think there's so many forces that draw things in the directions that are more profitable for sector interests, both and also not only private sector, but also if you look at how the state is organized, that you have Statens vegvesen, Bane NOR Eiendom, Riksantikvaren. They all have their targets, but none of them are devoted to create better cities. That's something they write here and there, but their main object is to ensure that their sector is strengthened. So I find that very difficult. You don't have a holistic planning project in this country.
Okay, and what about with the international perspective then, Karen? I mean, one thing is Norway. Norway is such a developed country. I mean, there are a lot of things which work nicely here. Although we don't reach our goals, we have Equinor and a lot of other challenges. But still, I mean, compared to a country like Brazil, for instance, I mean, the challenges you have are almost unimaginable, or?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's not fair to say this when it's so close to Christmas. I don't know I'm being negative here, but, well, the reality is not really positive at all. And then if you look at the research of IPCC reports that we have every, I mean, it's just terrifying, actually. If you look at Brazil at the moment, last week or 2 weeks ago, was 46 degrees on the beach at 8 in the morning in Rio de Janeiro. This is not normal, and this is not the peak of the summer. So some places even have like the sensation of 56, 60 inside some stadium. So, and again, it's not the peak of the summer. So what is that? But I think for me, what the main question is not really looking at only countries in the global south, but also look at what is the responsibility of the countries that are so-called global north, develop, you call it whatever you want. I think what you mentioned after my talk was really important to remember that a huge part of the percentage of the climate change, the responsibility actually is from a tiny percent of the world that is really polluting. If you look at the global south as a whole, it's like 80% if you look per capita, what they really produce in terms of carbon emissions, so on. And a lot of the production and a lot of the pollution that we have in those countries is to produce something to come to here, to be consumed here.
Luckily enough, Brazil elected Lula instead of Bolsonaro, so democracy matters, and the rate of deforestation has happily gone a little down again. Martin, you had a comment?
I have become more hopeful, and I think the reason why, because I touched it in this presentation I had about degrowth and trying to experiment with a more degrowth lifestyle. I think that the coupling that you also mentioned made more sense to me when I started to try to experiment with decoupling materialism from life quality. And I found it's possible to have tremendous life quality with little stuff, because as what is the morale in all the stories and fairy tales is that what matter most is the immaterial things, or friendships, or relations, having meaning, having purpose. And all of these things are very easy to muster when you have to work together to solve the crisis, the polycrisis the world is in, to summarize it short.
That's good. Vermicomposting. I mean, how far are we lagging behind internationally? Is this big business abroad, or is Norway also in the forefront here?
Yeah, vermicomposting actually is something very interesting. I'm a living evidence for that. I have been living with it for the last 15 years at least. And my best friends in this world are the earthworms, I mean it. And I have seen how effective it is, how important it is. But unfortunately, people either could not understood that or underestimate the use of these earthworms in this circulation of organic waste. And actually in other parts of the world, like USA, England, Canada, there are many people who are doing vermicomposting and who are exercising this circulation of organic waste using earthworms. So I can say that we have not yet utilized as we should have utilized. The same history is true here in Norway. In Norway, that can be even worse. There are many people who are really very eager and interested to start vermicomposting. They take contact with me and ask me how to do it. They start that, but they just stopped in the middle of the process. The only reason is that the people forgot that we are talking about living things that need something like us: food, water, moisture, temperature. So they just keep all the waste with the worms and leave them. So that's why we are not effective. Otherwise, there are people who are trying in Norway as well, but I think we can do more than what we have to do.
And Katinka, rain gardens was an interesting project. In the bigger picture, I mean, how important is this? Is this just a minor detail, fun to research, or is it important?
I think that, well, I cannot answer for how important rain gardens are as nature-based solutions and the effect, but my work has been more about how we can use or take advantage of the potential or take advantage of rain gardens as educational arenas where we can kind of being showcases about nature-based solutions, and also just to see use them as outdoor classrooms to talk about how the nature works, nature functions, and really not only for school kids, but that we kind of get a closer relationship to nature. When we live in the cities, we need to see how nature works, and we need to be close to it in order to develop care for nature. So this is just seeing it as a potential place for doing that, and that we don't have to go out in the wilderness or up in the mountains to have this to develop a nature connectedness. We can try to give this small nature experiences and also the learning experiences about nature in the city.
Interesting. Yeah, Erling, just before Christmas, last Christmas, Norway signed an international nature treaty in Montreal, in Canada. 30% of the global commons are supposedly going to be, conserved and preserved for future. Is this also a new opportunity for urban planners, in the sense that we are going to let a lot more of nature be intact, so we have to concentrate more on human activities in the city areas?
Absolutely, and I think that's a very important message for urban planning in this country and other countries, is that if you look at the most successful cities, they have combined growth with preservation of nature and also preservation of farming land. And it's very often the public discourse is that, well, the big cities, they are polluted, they are problematic. But if you just take a simple example, Oslo have a growth rate. Since 1985, it has grown with as many people that lives in Bergen, from 435,000 to more than 700,000 now. They have not taken any of the forest, not the farmed land in those two valleys, Sørkedalen or Maridalen. All that has been built on transformed land, in a way, previous industrial sites with very low efficiency and very low use after the industry moved out. And it has been an extremely successful transformation from an industrial city, where 25% of the workforce worked in the industry, to 2%. And when you say this, for instance, to people from the farming party or center party, they just think that can't be the truth. So it's like the discourse and reality are so far away from each other. And I think that's a paradox. And so big cities can be extremely green, and now we have this push from that nature deal. So it's much more, if you go to all of which like to and small municipalities where you actually attack the nature and say we need to build more cabins, we need to transform myr, I don't know what, swamps, marsh.
Bogs, marshes.
Yeah, without them we can't have any development in our community, etc.
Martin?
It's interesting you bring that up, Erling, because I think Oslo might be the first area neutral city in Norway. It just doesn't state it. It has this huge green border around it called Markagrensen, the border to the forest. And they actually ran out of pretty much areas to develop, so they have to densify and they have to transform. It's really, really interesting to see how that made Oslo a really green city as well. But of course, this also puts pressure on places like Ås and the surrounding areas of the Oslo center, because people really also look for these detached homes and with huge big gardens. This is what we also see here in Ås. People come here also to look for these kind of dwellings. But that is also what will take the land, what will actually destroy the forest or destroy the marshes if we build on them.
Right. In Brazil, of course, you have protected a lot of land because they are basically indigenous lands. So I suppose it's not difficult for Brazil to reach a target of 30% protected areas, given that you have all these indigenous lands being protected by law.
Yeah, just start conversation. I'm not really a researcher about Brazil. I'm from Brazil, but I've been living outside Brazil for the last 10 years. So it's quite funny talking about this. Yeah, we have been trying actually to protect this, but it's a huge issue at the moment, especially about the land of farming as well. I mean, I think all of you are quite aware that the meat industry is a huge problem in lots of parts. And again, a lot of the meat industry, soya industry, that goes again for the cows, is a lot to produce food that the best quality meat doesn't stay in Brazil at all come to Europe, go to US as well. So again, a question of coloniality is always related in those paths as well, isn't it?
So, anybody? Yes, there's a gentleman down there. Name, please.
Yes, my name is Daraja, and my question is to Karen and Erling. By the way, I'm with Allen from Edelmark also. I happen to work in infrastructure development projects at Spurvajern, and sustainability is my responsibility also. So when you said it is not progressing in the right direction, I disagree in a way, because the standards, there are international standards are coming, like international financial cooperation and also sustainability reporting. These are pushing us to the life cycle analysis aspects which address the problems of extraction in the south. How do you see these aspects?
No, but the question is, of course, very precise, and I think that, well, you have, of course, everything doesn't go the wrong way, and I think that your example here with biological solutions to biological problems is, of course, the way you should work. If you have been working with, for instance, fish health, which is a big sector in Norway, you know that the idea of having mechanical solutions to biological problems is devastating. And it ends up with chemical solutions to biological problems, which anyway disturbs the whole ecosystems around salmon farming. So I think that in the global south, and we are maybe into a distribution problem, that how do you distribute the costs of a greener society? And I think that very often, at least I think very often the problems are bound also to political culture, to all the challenges democracy have, all these new populist, all around the world it seems like politicians that were unthinkable 20 years ago are now in power, both in African countries and in European countries and in Asian countries. So I would just say that without a sound political culture, it's very hard to achieve a much broader and more inclusive green politic.
Good.
Thank you very much. My name is Franklin Bogorade. And first of all, I want to thank the organizers of this seminar, and particularly to refer to sustainable fish feed, a public hearing that held a few weeks ago. So when I realized the university presented a lot of, about 6 inputs, technical inputs, which were really very inspiring. And in point of fact, one of the reasons I made it a duty to come today. So, but my question is, or my comment goes into the kind of impact we are registering with urbanization when it comes into, I'll make a particular reference to an issue we are looking at, Oslo Fjord. So if we are putting spotlight on urbanization, for example, and the kind of effluent, I'll point to nitrogen specifically. So do you think we are developing a right approach, whether short or long term, to reverse the trend of nitrogen pollution in the field, which, by the way, has substantially, from reports, reduced the biodiversity of the Oslo fields, which we know to be one of the richest, even perhaps historically richer than Nordland. So, but my main question is, are we losing sight of that issue as we consider urbanization, I mean, in the context of sustainability? Are we having that approach, that concern in mind that down the road we need to ensure that our urbanization considers that ultimate impact on the field? Thank you.
So the Oslo Fjord, major issue, a lot of pollution, going straight into the fjord, killing of fish and birds and whatever have you. Any comment, Martin?
Yes, it's we don't have the right approach right now. I think the main problem is we know what we should do, but we don't do it because we have divided all this. We have a plan, like this Oslo Fjord plan, but it doesn't really say anything about the cost-benefit. It doesn't say where we should start, and it also doesn't really place the responsibility clearly at some stakeholders. The government, I think, should be clearly in the lead in this and gather all the municipalities to save the Oslo Fjord. In all these measures, and it's not, I can't mention one. And when we do it, it's also important to say that everything that comes into Oslo Fjord, all the problems we have with it, it comes from some source of consumption. Either it is or fisheries that are taking out the codfish, which again has cascade effects in the ecosystem, making this algae grow because we don't have enough shrimps and other of these animals. Or it is the agricultural land, which we are growing so much wheat, and 90% of all our agricultural land is made to produce meat. Either it is or wheat in our areas, 70% about goes into fodder for animals, where 90% is lost in the process. We lose a lot of energy in that. So a lot of consumption habits would also need to change. And I think this is the core of and the essence of what is so difficult about these challenges, because people don't seem ready to change yet.
Jolly good. And the last comment.
I would like just to add some point with what you have mentioned. Well, when it comes to nitrogen pollution, one of the sources is organic waste from different sources. And let me focus on household organic waste. So if we really are smart enough to utilize the organic waste at household level and use it as compost, as I have mentioned it means we are significantly reducing the nitrogen which is released to the water. The same is true from factories or fish industry. We can make compost, or as I mentioned, it can be used for biogas production, but the digestate can be used for compost production again. So by doing so, we can significantly reduce the nitrogen pollution, I think. Yeah.
Good point.
Thank you. My name is Siri Eriksson. I'm a professor here at NMBU. Thank you very much for very inspiring and diverse talks. So I have one question. The last IPCC report devoted a lot of attention to cities as sort of hotspots of sustainability. So it's not just, I mean, the hotspots in the sense that they're high risk from sea level rise, emissions from cities and so on. But on the other hand, they're also areas with a lot of innovation going on, and areas that can actually be leaders in shifting development through their role economically in the areas where they're situated. Also because there's new infrastructure going on that can be built in more sustainable ways rather than retrofitting old stuff. So I'd like a comment from any of you who might feel inspired to think about how cities can have that leading role in generating sustainability in society more widely.
Okay. One of you? Whomever?
Okay. Yes, I think that is a very poignant question, and I think that cities can have that role if they like to, if they're really up to the task. And I think that Oslo has been, during the last political regime with the Green Party, they have been very ambitious on this, and it sounds maybe a little bit biased, but I think they have done a great job on many of the questions here. And internationally, if you go abroad and say, Oslo, why they have this carbon dioxide, they take it seriously. They know the emissions in every sector. That's really new. So, but inside the country, you don't win elections by that. So, but I think the question is very good, because if you look on the problems we have, is that we don't share the costs and the benefits in a good way. The 5 poorest parts of Oslo, bydel, they had the highest number of people voted for the toll road party in the elections of 1919. And they used to vote for the Labour Party, and now they haven't come back to the Labour Party. Even if this toll road party has disappeared, they have gone to the Progress Party partly. So it's like those who had no objections against the toll roads, those are those with highest education and highest income. And so that's, I think that's a challenge. So if we don't bring in some kind of social redistribution system, we don't have a chance. But if you do that, because it has to be popular, a green change has to be something that people benefit from also economically. And I think that none of the Norwegian political parties have really brought that heavy enough on the agenda.
That's an interesting end note to go out with. I want to honor people's calendars. It's past 4 o'clock. Just one last question to you all, and I want you to raise your hand, because the concept of degrowth was introduced. That's a difficult concept. It's an interesting concept. It's a concept belonging to the future. How many of you in the panel believe that degrowth is part of the road we have to go down? So how many? The panel consists of 5, and we have, oh la la, 5 out of 5 thinks that degrowth is a way down the road we have to go.
Can I just say one thing? Because it's really interesting to talk about degrowth, but just 2 aspects here, really quickly. One, please don't try to think about this in an individual aspect. I mean, even all of us here suddenly decide to recycle everything, be really as neutral as possible, this is still not enough, and we don't have so much time. I mean, we study IPCC reports as well, telling us all the time. So it's not a question about individual. It's great to do all those things, I'm not going against, but it's something more deep on that as well. There is a system that we live now that focus only on growth all the time and focus about this. So it's something much more in-depth. If you think about the growth, not think about individual aspect, and also let's share the costs and the benefits, because so far the Global South have been sharing a lot of the costs and we're not getting really the benefits. So if it's to share, let's share this between all of us. And also don't forget that even though Norway is doing a great job in many aspects, but we still have one of the highest consumption in the world, also one of the highest energy use in the world. So per capita, Norway is polluting a lot. So let's take into consideration all the aspects, not only the pollution in the country.
So Martin, you have the last 30 seconds.
I would say, let's focus on all levels. Let's also focus on the individual level. But I don't believe in shame, I believe in inspiration. I think that is so important. So if you feel inspired to do anything in your life that is towards degrowth, I think it can give a broader understanding also of how politics can be implemented. And this is about changing both on your workplace, in your individual life, and also politics. All of them are important, and I think we should start everywhere.
I also believe in inspiration, and I'm always inspired when I come out here to Ås, to Vitenparken. Always interesting talks to be had, and very interesting people to listen to. So a big hand to this wonderful group of people.